such a confidence boost to like know that you achieved a goal, and a goal that you thought was impossible. What's the next impossible thing that I can do? What are, like, holy cow, there's limitless potential out there. It gives you so much fuel and then so much courage to just try more.
And that, my listeners, was Jason Bishop. He's my best friend and husband, and one of the most courageous people I know. Since the first season of the X Perspective podcast is all about stories of courage, I figured why not start with a personal story. Before we jump into Jason's story, I want to ask you a few questions. Have you ever thought about carving a new life path for yourself? Or just stepping into unfamiliar places to experience life differently? Well, this episode is an inspiring treat. I'm your host, Raj. Come with me as we together dive into the very first episode of the X Perspective podcast. I've been looking forward to this for a very long time. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here. Love your little podcast setup. It's great.
Thank you. So today, as you know, we are talking about courage. And I know that you have done a lot of courageous acts in your life. And I'm not saying being with me was like an act of courage. I'm talking about other things. So I know when I met you about 23 years ago, you had a very different kind of perception about what life should be like. And I know that was instilled in you, as well as me, growing up in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
For our international audience, can you explain what was the mindset you had as a Canadian growing up?
I feel like the Canadian values that were instilled in me were kind of the typical North American values that you would see, on TV. So, for example, you grow up, you go to school, then you go to university if you're successful in school, and then you get a job, and then you get married, and you have kids, and you get a dog and a car, and then you do that until you retire, and then in your retirement, you can go, travel a little bit on a cruise or go down to Florida, and then you're done. This is a life.
Even though you knew that this was the way things should be done, did you ever have any other idea?
So when I met you, I wanted to be a pilot. So I thought, I could do that. And then you get to go, to some places in Europe or around the world, and you get to see stuff. But, if you're living a pilot's life, you go there for a few days, maybe you take a vacation there, and then you come back and you have all that same stuff back in Canada. Your real life is in Canada. Your job just takes you elsewhere. Or perhaps you're working for a big company and their headquarters is in America, and you might move down there, but then you're doing all the exact same things. You're just setting that up in another North American city. You're still doing that exact same thing.
Did you always have this inclination to want to do something different?
As my tenure at university started coming to an end, and I was thinking about pilot training and things like that, it started entering my mind, like, it would be so cool to say that I lived in another place for like a year or something like that. Or, even a few months, like, oh yeah, I used to, live in Paris or something, that kind of thing, right? I thought that would be cool, but it just kind of seemed not possible. Like, how does anyone do that, right?
And I have to admit that I also felt the same way. Things seemed impossible. How do you graduate with a debt and then go and travel the world or go outside of Canada? How does that even happen, right?
Sure, yeah. University is expensive. Not as expensive as American university or international students paying for university. But at that time, I worked and paid for school, and I came out with some debts and loans. And yeah, it just feels like really hard to say, go and do all these leisurely travel things.
We all know that if you want to have a change in your life, you got to do something different. You got to put yourself out there, get into the unknown, test yourself, summon the courage to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you did. So for the audience, can you tell them initially, what kind of courage did you have to summon in order to change your life?
Sure. Well, our first step, you and I both summoned the courage to go to Korea. So basically, we did what a lot of people do now these days, actually. But at that time, it was less common. But you teach English in Korea. We got on the internet, heard a little phone call with someone. They are like, hey, we'll fly you out here. You have a job. Pack up your stuff. Let's go. And then we were on board. I mean, we wanted to go. We were looking. But yeah, like to just jump out into Korea, we did like no real research on what Korea was or anything. We just had the opportunity. We'd never had Korean food. I mean, we'd barely traveled anywhere, so we had no idea what Asia was even like. And then, yeah, just jumped on the plane and went.
And I remember in 2 weeks, we packed up our entire life and got on that plane.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
Yeah, so that was your initial courage.
Exactly.
We'll get into what was the most courageous act for you in your life in a bit. But tell us, what was your mindset like after 2 years of being abroad, living in Korea? I know you had mentioned at one point you needed something more in life instead of simply going back to Canada. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, well, when we were in Korea, we'd done a little bit of traveling. We had the opportunity, so we'd gone out and seen some other countries and enjoyed things like Thailand here, for instance. It was the beginning of our love affair with this country. The thought of going back to Canada was there, but like, you know, I've spent 2 years and I've done these things and I've lived abroad like I said I wanted to, and I'm going to take that back, but I actually think I want some more.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's something out there. Like we started to taste these different places, and you know, coming out here, it just gave my mind the freedom to kind of dream more. Like, oh, I said, you know, oh, it'd be cool to live in the city. Okay, well, what would really be cool? And I just pushed my mind beyond that, and I had an idea to go on a trip.
Yes, please tell us about your huge dream.
Yes. My huge dream was basically to travel literally around the world. Like, if I had an idea that I can live in a city and then take that, what about all the other stuff? You know, that deep in the recesses of my mind that I thought would like barely even consider, because like how does anybody travel for a whole year? Well, like, where do you get this money? Where do you get this time? I'm in this perfect position right now. You know, we paid off our debts after these 2 years, so that's good. We have some savings in the bank. Like, what could you do with your life that would make you so happy you lived it? Okay, yeah, I'm going to go travel. I'm going to go to all these places. Like, we got out a map. We just picked all the places that like, hey, it would be so awesome to come here, right? Like, just dream and then reach for those dreams.
I believe we ended up having at least 13 countries.
Yeah. Well, kind of once we put everything out there, we kind of narrowed it down some, because you can't go to like, you know, 300 countries in a year. Not that we had that many, but you know what I'm saying. So we narrowed it down to kind of like a route that we could follow. And yeah, just like put those things in kind of, you know, ranking order, what would be good, what would work with this route. And like, let's make this mega trip. Let's do something so awesome that you'll never forget it for the rest of your life.
And you know, it was all exciting to do this adventure, but I had no idea how it would change me after a year.
Same.
And we can get into that for sure. But would you say this was the most courageous thing you've done in your entire life up to this point?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you know, growing up with the Canadian values, I kind of, I guess, alluded to it, that it's, you know, like a path to follow, and it's kind of hard to think outside of the box, especially to do something for yourself. It just seemed like I have to follow this path. That's what success looks like. And I kind of redefined that for myself, and just, yeah, the courage to, you know, step out into the unknown, leave all that you know behind. I mean, that's basically what courage is, right? And then to do it and to reach for those dreams and just to reach out into the unknown and, you know, like go after something that is good.
To have those experiences, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That transform you. So why don't we tell the audience, how were you transformed by this trip?
Well, I mean, in so many ways, even to this day, like I think back and I'm like, the source of, say, some pattern of thought or the way that I feel might reach back into kind of an experience that I had there, or just the general kind of idea that I achieved this goal, because it was so amazing. So I would say that like I've become a more extroverted. I used to be pretty introverted. Like, growing up, I was shy, definitely. And I sit at home, I play video games, I talk to people and stuff. I'm not saying like complete introvert, like hiding in the basement or something. And I had friends or whatever, but like going out and traveling, you got to do stuff. You got to do it now sometimes, right? Like, I got to get on this bus, or, I'm stuck in the middle of nowhere with nothing, or I got to get a hotel room like now, or I'm going to be on the street tonight. So, you have to put yourself out there and talk to people and do all these kinds of things. And sometimes it's not in English and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you just kind of develop this ability to talk to people, like get out there. And I had not had that before, for sure.
That's a big transformation right there. You had a insight into an aspect of your personality that you probably didn't even think existed. I mean,
Absolutely.
That happened to me, right? Mm-hmm. I was so surprised while on the trip. I was talking to everyone and I didn't care who it was. And like you said, there are situations you're put into where you're like, I gotta do this. And you don't even think about it twice. And then you find out really what you're made out of.
Absolutely. For sure. And then you can take these parts that you thought were weak in your personality and nurture them and make them stronger.
But it all starts with having the courage to put yourself out there into the unknown. And previously when we talked, you had mentioned that this trip was a radical departure from everything that you already knew. Mm-hmm. And this is after you had lived abroad for 2 years.
For sure. I mean, obviously being in Korea is very different from being in Canada. But the aspect of travel, like I mentioned that, we're going into the unknown and reaching for these dreams, but literally every day is basically unknown sometimes.
Exactly.
Most of the time when we were traveling, like we're going to a city maybe 5 days max, and then the next one, like what's the next thing? And you just keep going, like kind of every day, reaching into the unknown, even just seeing something that you've never seen before, eating a food you've never had before. Whatever, you're trying all this stuff and being flooded with all these experiences. Obviously you can't process it all at once, but you take pictures, you have memories, and you learn so much after. But it was so different from just leading a normal life with a job, going to a job every day, coming home, eating, and then you're done, you hang out, you have a beer, whatever.
I really want to dig in deeper into how this trip transformed you. Mm-hmm. Like, I know you mentioned that you used to be an introvert and then you started realizing there were aspects of you that were extroverted. But what else? How did this trip transform you?
I'd probably say the biggest thing is it just gave me confidence. And I think that helps probably with the extroversion as well, because you have the confidence to go talk to someone or whatever. We reached out for something, we got it, we did it. It gives you such a confidence boost to like know that you achieved a goal, and a goal that you thought was impossible. What's the next impossible thing that I can do? What are, like, holy cow, there's limitless potential out there. It gives you so much fuel and then so much courage to just try more.
Absolutely. I was going to say, it expands your mind.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Things that you never thought were possible all of a sudden become a possibility.
Oh, for sure. And then there's all kinds of other changes. Like, I'd never, say, hand washed clothes before, but I did that a few times on this trip, right? Or you go in places where there's no running water and you have to, get bottled. It's like you come back also so thankful for the things that like Canada has so easily that you just take for granted and are like a part of life and seem mundane. But, like having even just like a hot shower sometimes.
I was going to say like, the hot shower.
Yeah.
I can't help but remember how difficult it was in certain countries to get hot water.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Remember there was like some places where you don't even have a shower. You just like ladling water out of a pot. Like when you're out in a country where like there literally is no running water, they put the fresh water in a pot for you.
So Jason, was it harder to leave Canada initially or to take a year off from work and travel the world?
Looking back, obviously there was courage involved in both, but for me, if I really dig deep, I think it was the world trip that we did traveling outside. Because going to Korea, it was like, okay, we're going to pack up. Like, it just seemed like this huge adventure, super excited to go, which made it easier. And then it was like, we'll do it for a year and come back. Right. So there's that thing to come back to. With this trip, there's no school after we're done. You know, people will take like a gap year and go travel, right? Like you hear this all the time, say in Europe or something. We'd already gone through university. We've gone to Korea and we're ready to go back. And now let's do this trip and who knows what will happen after, right? Like it's just so unknown. No job. Where are we going to stay? I don't know.
Yes.
Right. So like there's even just afterwards that unknown, like, but we have to do this. Let's go. So just that, the courageousness comes from like just knowing that who knows what's after, like so much more unknown to deal with.
Exactly. And then the mindset, to change that mindset, I should be actually working, but I want to go on this trip.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah. You're supposed to travel like this when you retire or something, or when the kids are gone or something like that. Right. But my mindset was more like, again, about doing something that I really thought was like impossible. Just set this goal and do it. But also like have those experiences for when you're young. Mm-hmm. Use them now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't mention how many times I'm so grateful for that trip, because the lessons I have learned through our travels apply to my life every day.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about, does it take courage to create your own path than to follow the one that's laid out by society?
For me, yes. I mean, to me, that's almost the definition of courage. The path that we're talking about is the safety, right? Everybody's kind of walking in front. You're in the line. People in front of you, people behind you, all doing the same thing. You've got this rut in the road. You've been told where it's going. If you trust everybody, and it just, safety, right? You don't have to look outside. There's a path. Then I'm over here saying like, I don't want to do this. What's over there? And people are like, what are you doing? Don't go over there. Like, there terrorists live out there or something, right? Or there's bad things. They don't have running water out there. What are you doing? Or this is the best life. What's wrong with you? I don't know. I still want to see. Bye. Like I'm going and I'm carving this path, and you could get hurt. There's all kinds of things that could happen. You could fail. Like I said, definition of courage. Go face the unknown, right?
I couldn't agree more. I agree with the laid out path. There is a sense of security and safety there, right? Mm-hmm. That is not present in the unknown domain. How has stepping outside of the norm and traveling and living abroad impacted your life and beliefs today?
Yeah, just giving me that energy and that confidence to go and do these things and to realize how big the world is, but also how small, I guess, because nowadays we can just travel and fly around. But like there's so much out there, so much to explore, just opens your mind, right? To all the possibilities. And then to think like, I don't know, even if you go beyond that, like if we were a spacefaring race and all these other planets and stuff that could be out there and whatever, man, like it can go to all these crazy whacked out places. It's just, there's so much, and it made me more hungry and more ready to go and just do stuff and learn and love life.
Did you ever imagine that one day you would be living in Bangkok and managing a team of software developers?
No, I did not.
You never imagined that, considering what you've been talking about, how you have this vision, anything is possible.
Sure. But I guess, I don't know. I mean, I guess after the trip, yes, anything was possible. But before that, there is no way. But afterwards, it was just kind of like, where do we live? What do we want? How do I want to craft my life? And that was such a different perspective shift for me. Instead, because it just seems like, like you can go and get a job and do your thing. That's great. Like if you say, or I don't know, I'm just going to pick a random, like a teacher your whole life, right? You go, you do that, you teach kids. this is great. I mean, we were teachers, so I know. But like, if you're doing it in Canada, you get this teacher's pension, and then you go and you retire, and you have, money to do stuff, right? This is great, but I'm ready to say, whatever. I'll take what comes. I'll, live a little bit more on the edge and just see what happens, because I want to experience so much. I have an insatiable desire, and I think that's what makes me, I guess, courageous, or gives me the courage to do all these things.
Yeah, you need to have that motivation. It's different for everyone.
For sure.
But the common denominator, to me it seems, is that you have to be willing to put yourself out there in the unknown. So do you think that, I know we touched on this a little bit, but do you think there's an ideal age where one should travel based on your experiences?
There is an ideal age. The ideal age is whatever age you are right now.
That's a really good answer.
So, if you're in your 20s, like we were talking about, if you do this now, you can carry all the stuff that you've learned and experience you have throughout your life, and use it to inform all this stuff. If you're, say, in your 30s, you still have the energy to do, a party or whatever that you can experience another side of things, but you also have the money to maybe, not have to hitchhike or stay in a little nicer place. And then, in your 40s, you, hopefully have more ability, more money. You also know yourself more. So you can kind of craft and tailor things towards experiences that you'll probably enjoy more. Be more selective at. In the 50s and beyond, I mean, you're still informing your life, but I'm not that old yet, so I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah. Okay. And what would you say to people, since you have had so much experience traveling and going into the unknown and, being really courageous in your life, what would you say to the people who are nervous to travel or even to create their own path in life?
Well, in terms of traveling, I mean, there's so many places to go and see that, if you're nervous about one thing, you can go and take baby steps somewhere else. Europe is super safe and similar to North America. If you come to Asia, Korea and Japan are super safe. But if you're, say, strapped for cash, even if you can afford a flight somewhere, Thailand here is, relatively inexpensive, and you go and you do stuff, and it's totally exotic compared to Canada, and there's so much to experience. So if you're nervous, you can take steps towards getting to your goal. You don't have to just jump right in. That can help you develop a taste and a courage. In terms of just life things, I mean, to me it's kind of finding the desire. Well, we'll just go back to travel. If you take that and you say, oh, I really want to go travel, but really all you want to do is sit on a beach or something, that's not going to fuel a passion to go around the world. It's not going to take you through, all these learning experiences, when really all you'd want to do is just relax.
I just want you to be very clear. We haven't really touched on that, the kind of travel you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, what we did is, backpacking essentially. But also, willing to go on hikes and climb mountains, just various adventures. I don't mind chilling on the beach. We've done that lots. I don't mind climbing a mountain. We've done that lots too. Sometimes going on tours, lots of times doing stuff independently. I prefer independently, actually. But yeah, we went to Mongolia and just camped out in nowhere, no guide, no nothing, just let's walk around this lake and take a tent, and that was awesome.
The key is to do new experiences that challenge you.
Exactly.
Things that you may not think that you would ever do, like you just mentioned about camping in Mongolia.
And I think one of the best ways to develop courage is to start trying to find the confidence in yourself. I mean, when I was younger, I would say I had a lot less confidence in myself. I did fine in school and all that kind of thing, but I really didn't think I could, achieve and succeed and like on this level. I just never been pushed myself, and I needed a real test. So sometimes you got to do that for yourself. And yeah, find the desire and really get to know yourself. I think those are two key things to push yourself over the edge.
And take baby steps also.
Yeah, if you're not ready, I mean, you can take baby steps. Some people are ready to plunge. Go ahead and do that if you think you can. It's like trial by fire is, a great way to learn. You plunge yourself into the middle somewhere. If you're forcing yourself to survive, you'll find a way. That's what kind of humanity is, right? We're finding ways to survive. So maybe if you're not ready, you kind of extend yourself just that little bit and see how you perform.
Thank you so much, Jason. Is there anything else you want to say to the audience?
I want to say to the audience that find that courage within you, live your life, live your dreams. But it's not always about, I have this magical dream. Like, even if you don't achieve it, the adventure along the way is so amazing and so important. That's what life is. Trying to, struggle every day, do your thing, and take all those things and move forward and be better.
One of the stories I hear often is of people having deep regrets for not having the courage to live the life they truly wanted. So my listeners, will you have the courage to carve a new path for yourself if you need a change in your life? Are you willing to leave behind the familiar and venture into the unknown? With that, I thank you for your attention and time. Please subscribe for future episodes and help spread the word about the X Perspective podcast so others too can join our community. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you in episode 2.